Hello everybody, Alex Subhuman here with United Pop Melbourne. We're going to do something slightly different today. I wanted to talk about the question which I get asked the most. As a teacher here at United Pop in Melbourne, from my students, and as a mixing and mastering engineer, in case you're wondering, oi, who's this geezer talking about mixing? What does he know about it? Well, here's some of my lovely clients. These ones, these ones, these ones, these ones, these ones, and these ones. So what is the most common question I get asked? The question is, how do I make my mix or my master sound as loud as, and then insert the artist name. And now normally that artist is Skrillex, or sometimes it's Noisia, or Space Laces, Moody Good, etc., etc. When I cover 4 main points, the first thing I want to talk about is music that is super loud, yet also dynamic and sounds clear and comfortably that loud, has been made to be that loud. Yes, that sounds pretty obvious, but what does that actually mean? Well, when I say it's been made to be loud, I mean it's been produced to be made loud from the beginning. All the sounds that have been produced from the beginning have been maximized to the loudest volume from the get-go. That means as you're sound designing, there will be a limiter or a clipper or a maximizer or whatever you want to call it at the beginning of the chain. So when the sound starts to be made, it's already being limited. This all comes down to the philosophy of what I think about when it comes to loud mixes and masters, is it's reverse engineer the loudness. If we know something's going to be limited or clipped, don't wait into the end to do it. If you wait until the end, that's when you get weird surprises where the mix or the balance or the sound that you've made goes weird and a bit yuck. So start with that limiting first, which means as we're designing our sounds, we've started with limiting already. Next, then when it comes to mixing the track, we're mixing with the loudness already there. What the heck does that mean? Go back a minute. What did I just say? We reverse engineer the loudness. So don't do the lovely little beautiful delicate mix and then be like, oh, I want it to sound like Skrillex. So then you slap on like 10 dBs of limiting on it and then you go, hey, why does my mix sound bad? Because you've turned this beautiful little dainty thing into this disgusting, horrible mess where what you should be doing is thinking about that loudness from the beginning. So whenever I start a mix, I always have my compressor on. I'm generally trying to get between 1 and 3 dBs of gain reduction. That is going to be relative to the track, so it's normally something like the drums causing that compression to happen. On some of the crazier dubstep songs I make, that might be like 5 dBs of gain reduction, but on other stuff it's like, between 1 and 3. And then I'm adding maximizing and limiting. And this is before I've even heard the song. Yes, I have a compressor, maximizer, and limiter on my master channel as I mix. Now, all these people are like, hey, you can't do that. Well, they're wrong. They're not wrong, but they are wrong. They're wrong if you want the loudness. That frames another question of, well, why should it be loud? But we'll save that question for another day. Let's just assume you've been smart enough to make the conscious decision yourself to make a loud song, probably because you're making dance music, right? Therefore, you'll need to be adding the loudness. Again, loudness goes first. Reverse engineer it. You don't add it at the end, you add it at the start. Yeah? So that is Alex's reverse engineer the loudness technique. Everyone's been like getting their little magnifying glasses out on those Skrillex sessions when you can see there's lots of Pro L being used across the board. All of this is part of the same idea. Now, I will put a little caveat out here. I don't mix and master all of my parts of the track to be super loud. I think that's where some people get the idea wrong. You don't make everything screaming hot. The stuff in the drops or the bits that need to be loud, I will clip them, I will limit them, I will group them, I will compress them, I'll limit them and clip them again. But there'll be some lovely little organic bits that I leave alone, right? I'm not applying that processing across the board. Otherwise you end up with a square piece of sounds like garbage. It's about knowing which elements to apply that processing to. Okay, so think about that. We'll come back to that in the future. Next, the music has been written to be loud. Now that's 2 more points. So when you're writing, we're thinking about the composition of the song and we're thinking about the instrumentation, right? Instrumentation for dance music is a little bit more like sound design. So you need to be very careful and considerate as to what sounds you're designing or what instruments you pick to do certain jobs. Think about it as different colors of a paintbrush. And 20 to 20,000 hertz, our frequency range is the color spectrum. You can't have everything being red, everything being yellow. We spread around our frequency range. So if we have too many sounds in one area, we're of course going to come up with problems. Think about festival trap music. Big, stupid, obnoxious 808s, completely taking up all the headroom. What's our drop synths? They're little tiny screechy little kids. Because we have so much energy in the low end, that's all that's really left. Or with that nice balance, we can go crazy, crazy loud. Yeah, that's a big oversimplification, but that's the right idea. If we have a really, really bass heavy song, So lots of low end sub. And then someone was like, oh, I think our kicks should be really big and tonal. That's a bad idea because you've already got two big bassy elements. And then think about the leads. If the leads were supposed to be bassy as well, disaster. That's not going to be what we want at all. Thinking about that, if I was to pick my kicks for a song that had really, really big, long, sustained tonal bass, my kicks would be more sharp, punchy. If that's a kick, I wouldn't want it to go like this and be spread out. I want it to be more like a little angry fist. It punches through that bass, but it doesn't hang around to be distorted, right? And if I was to pick a lead sound on top of that, I'd pick something more in the mid to high mids and high range. Yep. Now this brings into our last point. Songs are written to be loud. When we're constructing our melodies or our rhythms and our bass lines, create space for yourself to enable you to be loud. Now, this is a nice thought. Inside the box, everything's all ones and zeros. But when it leaves that domain and goes into the air via our speakers, we have to actually physically move something. And this is what I love about sound. It goes from being something a little bit more abstract to a physical membrane moving around. Right? That's the speakers. It has to literally push the sound at you. If your bass and your subs and your kicks are always playing, this is basically something with really high RMS, the speaker is going to get bogged down. It doesn't have enough room to push back out at you. So you lack that kind of punch. Give yourself space. Let the speaker breathe, and then it can push out something and be more punchy. That's the clarity. So when you're designing your bass lines, think about the sustain of the notes. You might want to tighten up the sustain leading into a kick or leading into a snare. Think about it as sidechain compression, but a little bit before the kick. It's kind of like a pre-sidechain compression, right? Are you catching what I'm throwing? So your bass sound happens. And then before you get to the ka, you're going to want that bass sound to stop for a little bit. And that little bit of gap is going to enable the speaker to be like, and then push back out on the snare. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? So there's a lot of little things that you need to think about when it comes to your mix or your master being super loud. Just to recap, it's going to be loud from the get-go. The sounds you're making will be made to be loud, so they're already compressed and limited. Next, when you're mixing the songs or putting your pieces together, I've already got the loudness applied. So I'm seeing how my parts interact together under that loudness. Third point, instrumentation. Think about the frequency range for instrumentation. We don't want anything too bogged down in one area. Spread your sounds around, make your mix happen easier. Last point, think about your songwriting for the sounds. Give yourself space and room to breathe with your melodies and your rhythms around your drums, and things will start to sit together a lot nicer. All right, something new for me today, guys. A little forward-facing hello, how you doing? This has been Alex Subhuman here at United Pop Melbourne. Bye-bye. Happy mixing, happy producing, happy mastering. See you later. Bye.